Now that the Super Bowl is over and football season has come to a close, there may be some other sports going on right now, but let's be honest with ourselves, it is time for baseball. Now with the 2023 baseball season right around the corner, it's time to go over some of the best free agent signings of the offseason, as well as some of the worst. Now there's definitely going to be some hot takes in this video, so I'm sorry in advance if you're a Phillies fan, but let me know in the comments what you guys think is the worst contract signed this offseason. I have a very strong opinion about mine. And one last thing before we get into the video, I do want to give a shout out to Thrive Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Check them out at the link in my description. They're a player prop betting app where you can bet on player props in almost every state in the US. A $10 deposit gets you $60 worth of money to bet with a 100% deposit match, as well as 2 free $20 contest entries. Now, even though baseball is not here, we still have basketball and hockey to bet on for now, so check them out at the link in my description. And without further ado, let's get into talking about our first contract. Now, the first contract I want to talk about is Carlos Rodon. Rodon. I feel like I pronounce it wrong no matter which way I pronounce it. Now, Carlos, let's be honest with ourselves, has been a top 5, probably a top 3 pitcher in Major League Baseball over the last 2 seasons. He's top 5 in WAR. He's top 1 in fielding independent pitching. He's top 1 in strikeouts per 9. He's top 5 in ERA. He's just been an absolutely dominant pitcher over the last 2 years, and that's a pretty good sample size of over 300 innings pitched. So I'm one to believe that it's a legitimate breakout, and he's getting paid less money than Steven Strasburg. He's getting paid less money than his teammate Garrett Cole. He's getting paid less than Max Scherzer. He's even getting paid less than Chris Sale. And with him being signed for 6 years, they're only paying him through his age 36 season. So I think this is a great deal. And realistically, even though it's $27 million per year, I think it's a severe underpay for how good Carlos Rodon is. I'll absolutely take a top 5 pitcher for $27 million a year, especially the way the market's been trending. Now, going from one of my favorite contracts to one of my least favorite contracts, I'll be honest, there were a lot of good contracts signed this offseason. It was a little bit hard to find ones that I didn't like, but this is one that I've been kind of back and forth with if I like it or not, and that is Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz signed a 5-year, $102 million contract, and he's getting paid over $20 million a year as a reliever, which makes him by far the highest paid relief pitcher in all of baseball. Now, I can already see people typing their comments and not even listening to me anymore, but if you are still listening to me, this is why I don't think it's a great contract. Relief pitchers are unpredictable. Even a guy like Edwin Diaz, who had one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a relief pitcher last year, could absolutely fall off a cliff next year. I'm not saying it's going to happen, I'm just saying there's definitely a chance that it does. Every once in a blue moon, you'll get a guy like Mariano Rivera or Trevor Hoffman who can consistently be an elite relief pitcher for 10 plus years. But even going back to 2021, Edwin Diaz did not have a great season then. He had a solid 2020 in a small sample size. He had a terrible 2019. He's been a very up and down reliever, and I would be surprised if he's able to match what he did last season, despite how dominant he looked on the mound last year. Now, if I were to compare him to one of his contemporaries, I'd look at Aroldis Chapman's contract, because he signed a big deal with the Yankees a couple years back, and while he did have some very solid seasons in New York, towards the end of this contract, he absolutely fell off a cliff. So I wouldn't be surprised if this Edwin Diaz deal maybe looks solid next year, but 2, 3, 4 years down the line, I don't think this is going to be remembered as a great contract. So it's more the longevity of this contract, not necessarily going into 2023, but 5 years for a relief pitcher who's been up and down his whole career scares me a little bit. But as far as a win now move for the Mets, it's not a terrible contract. I just said, like I said, there's a lot of good contracts signed. I had to pick someone. Edwin Diaz is who I settled on. Now moving on to my second favorite contract of the offseason, that is Willson Contreras signing with the St. Louis Cardinals. 5 years, $87.5 million. That translates to $17.5 million per year for what I think is easily a top 5 catcher in Major League Baseball. Now, over the last 2 seasons, Willson Contreras is top 5 in home runs, on-base percentage, slugging, and WRC+. So I think he easily should have gotten $20 million per year, and if I was another Major League team and I saw him sign this contract, I would have absolutely offered him more money than this. I think he's one of the best and maybe the most underrated player in baseball because he is fantastic as a catcher, and catcher's a really hard position to find a solid, everyday starter like Willson Contreras. So I think the Cardinals absolutely fleeced the rest of baseball with this contract they signed. Now moving on to my second least favorite contract, that is Trey Turner's 11-year, $300 million contract that he signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now this is another one, it's very similar to the Edwin Diaz one I was talking about. It's good in the short term. I think it'll be very good going into next season. I think it gives them the star power that they need, with Bryce Harper's probably starting the year player on the injured list for a good portion of the season. But 11 years for a guy who's turning 30 soon and is known for his speed, I just think that is a very risky move. And I consider myself as an Angels fan an expert in terrible contracts. This contract might go down as one of the worst in MLB history, depending on how long Trey Turner can keep up his elite speed heading into his 30s. I do think the Phillies severely overperformed last year and got very lucky in the postseason, which good for them. I just don't know if Trey Turner was the missing piece to win the World Series over a team like the Astros, who are just ridiculously more complete than them. And I know Trey Turner does have other tools other than his speed, but I just don't see him turning into a good enough power hitter or a good enough contact hitter after his speed goes down in his mid-30s to justify how much they're going to be paying him. $27 million a year for a 38-year-old Trey Turner? Like, just say that out loud. Do you really think that's going to be valuable? Now, Trey Turner has been absolutely a top 3 shortstop in Major League Baseball over the last 2 seasons, and he's one of the best players in all of baseball. So we'll see how long this contract looks good for, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 4 years or so, this is the worst contract in all of baseball, similar to Anthony Rendon's. All right, now moving on to my favorite and my least favorite contract. They kind of go hand in hand with each other, and it really has to do with the value of their contracts versus the results they've put up. So let's do a little exercise here. I'm going to put 3 players on the screen: player A, player B, and player C. Now, these are their stats over the last 2 seasons. Player A had the most innings pitched, the lowest ERA, the lowest fielding independent pitching, the highest FWAR, the lowest walk rate, and he did also have the lowest strikeout rate. So that's really the one knock on player A. Player B had about average innings pitched of the 3. He did have the highest ERA and the highest FIP, but he had an average FWAR. He had the highest strikeout rate, and he had an average middle-of-the-line walk rate of the 3. And then we come to player C. 316 innings pitched. That's the lowest among these 3. He had an average ERA and average fielding independent pitching. He had the lowest WAR of the 3. He had a middle-of-the-line strikeout rate, and then he had the highest walk rate, so he doesn't even necessarily throw strikes. Now, player A is my favorite contract of the offseason. Yes, I am biased, but I'm going to tell you why I think this. That, of course, is Tyler Anderson. 3 years, $39 million. That's about $13 million per season for the Angels. And player B was Jameson Taillon, who signed a deal with the Cubs. I don't necessarily have strong feelings about this. I think this is a very average contract. I don't think it was great value. I don't think it's terrible value. But I do think it's not nearly in the ballpark of Tyler Anderson, since he has worse numbers than Tyler Anderson and he's getting paid more money. And then player C is getting paid the most out of these 3 players. That is Taiwan Walker signing with a team that's known for doing bad things with their pitchers in the Philadelphia Phillies. 4 years, $72 million deal. So Taiwan Walker is getting $5 million more per year than Tyler Anderson to put up worse numbers, walk more batters, give up more runs, pitch less innings. And yes, Tyler Anderson's like a year and a half older than him, but it's not like Tyler Anderson's 40 years old and Taiwan Walker's 25. They are about the same age. When I saw Taiwan Walker get $72 million, I just can't believe it. He's been a very average pitcher pretty much his entire career. He's had good seasons here and there, but he's a pitch to contact guy for the most part. He's not an elite strikeout pitcher or anything. And he's going to one of the worst defensive environments in all of baseball. Yes, they added Trey Turner, who can play good defense. I'll give you that. But their outfield defense is atrocious outside of Brandon Marsh. And you're adding a pitcher who's going to let people put the ball in play. I just think Taiwan Walker's contract is absolutely terrible. While Tyler Anderson, man, 3 years, $39 million. I wasn't sure how I felt about it at the time, but after seeing these 2 contracts here that I'm comparing them to, I think it's an absolute steal and the steal of the offseason. May not have been the flashiest move. It's not Carlos Rodon. It's not the best pitcher in baseball. It's not as flashy as Aaron Judge. It's not as flashy as Carlos Correa. But as far as pure value goes, I think Tyler Anderson is the best bang for your buck, the best value of the 2022 MLB offseason. Now that is going to do it for us in this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm sure there's plenty of people typing angry comments right now who disagree with my picks, and that's fine. Let's have a discussion about it in the comments. Keep it as civil as possible. If you did enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe for more daily MLB and just baseball in general content. I try to put out new videos to you guys every single day, and your support means the world to me. I'm getting married later this year, so I need as much support as possible, trying to pay for a wedding, of course. So I appreciate each and every one of you for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one. day.